Hello everybody, welcome to day 5 of our Trust for Sustainable Living Partner Power Summit on Protecting Biodiversity and our third panel discussion of the week, thinking about how youth and schools can help protect biodiversity. We have an amazing panel of scientists and youth speakers, and I'm going to hand over to our moderator for the discussion, Dr. Barry Murrer, who is the TSL Chair of Trustees. Over to you, Barry. Have a wonderful session, everyone.
Thank you very much, Kirsty. I'm delighted to welcome our panellists and our audience today. I'm told the audience consists of super curious young biodiversity activists, so that's great to talk to you all. And we're looking forward very much to receiving some questions from you through the chat as we go along, so we'll make time to take your questions at the end. First of all, we've got a panel of very experienced protectors of biodiversity to discuss the position today. I think I'd like them to introduce themselves one by one. So Cornelia, you're at the top of my screen, so why don't you begin?
Yes, so thanks very much, Barry, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm Cornelia Krug. I'm based at the University of Zurich in Switzerland. I'm an ecologist by training, and I've been working with biodiversity for, actually, I'm not young anymore. It's more than 30 years now. It's when I started my studies. I'm also the mother of a 12-year-old daughter. And my role now actually in my work is I think about how to actually tell people about biodiversity, making the link between science, policy, and society. So that's
yeah. Thank you. Alieu, why don't you go next? Hello, Alieu.
Hello.
Okay, excellent. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. I am Alieu J Busa of Green Hope Foundation chapter here, Liberia. And my involvement with biodiversity has started over the last 4 years, since my second last year in high school. And my connection with Green Hope Foundation has just expanded my platform for me to expand more of my idea and to do more work in protecting our biodiversity.
Thank you, Alieu. Pragna, introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Barry. And hello, everyone. I am Pragna, the head of events of Green Hope Foundation, and I'm connecting with you all from the UAE. I'm delighted to be a speaker at this amazing event and to speak about my experience. I have worked and been a part of Green Hope Foundation for the past 6 to 7 years. And yeah, looking forward for a great meeting. Thank you.
Thanks very much. And Pragna, you're currently, where are you in the world?
I'm connecting with you from UAE.
UAE. Alieu, where are you in the world?
Liberia.
You're in Liberia?
Liberia.
Liberia. Cornelia, you're in Switzerland because it says that on your
yes.
picture there. And I'm in Southern England. I think perhaps we should just take a few minutes for each panelist just to talk about their experience of promoting biodiversity and protecting biodiversity. I'd particularly like to hear about the organisations you represent. So, Pragna, maybe I'll put you on the spot first. Could you tell us a bit about Green Hope Foundation?
Yes, definitely. Let me just begin sharing my screen. Awesome. So, nature is rich and diverse. It nurtures over 1 billion species and provides mankind with resources. Unfortunately, it is rapidly declining, with the world's ecosystems from the oceans to the forests being degraded and dozens of species going extinct every single day. Humanity is at a crossroads. We can either decide to continue this pattern and subsequently cause the destruction of this planet, or we can take the path towards prosperity, one which aligns with the sustainable use of natural resources and simultaneously improves the well-being of the world's population. We can do this by encouraging the youth of today, because after all, they are the first generation in the history of humankind on whose shoulders we have put the responsibility to secure a sustainable world. They are the hope, and if we fail to educate and encourage them, we all will have to live in the sorrow of sacrificing our future. Today's youth, in a matter of years, will have the power of their tongue to force governments and policymakers to act in the interest of a sustainable world. We need to intensively train and educate the youth on practical knowledge that is environmentally and socially friendly, as well as the responsible use of natural resources. The education system and schools play a huge role in shaping young minds and molding them to be the future leaders of our world. We at Green Hope Foundation give the youth a platform to raise their voices and take climate action. We do this in accordance with the Sustainable Development Goals. Our work encompasses SDG 14, Life Below Water, and SDG 15, Life on Land. We link these goals with the other SDGs such as SDG 13, Climate Action, SDG 4, Quality Education, SDG 12, Sustainable Consumption and Production. Over the past many years, we have conducted several education academies and workshops in the UAE, engaging schools and universities of the region. We have organized multiple beach cleanups and cigarette stub collections. Green Hope works extensively on mangrove conservation, composing of mangrove cleanups in the UAE and mangrove planting. Our members across the world have taken part in our newest initiative, Grow Your Own Food campaign. Through this initiative, we aim to educate students on responsible consumption and production. As you can see, our members in the UAE have been successful in growing many fruits and vegetables. We have planted over 145,000 trees worldwide and planted thousands of trees in the UAE. In addition to that, we also work on turtle conservation, encouraging our members as young as the age of 4 to take part in such ground-level projects. In Oman, we have organized several workshops and beach cleanups. We also work on turtle conservation and mangrove conservation in Oman. Furthermore, our members have worked on the conservation of biodiversity of the Wadi Buraya in Oman. A wadi in Arabic means a valley, ravine, or channel that is dry except during the rainy season. The Wadi Buraya, located in the mountains of UAE and the northernmost parts of Oman, is a biodiversity hotspot, home to more than 100 species of mammals, birds, reptiles, and amphibians, as well as more than 300 species of plants. In India, our members have taken part in the Grow Your Own Food campaign and successfully grown fruits and vegetables such as papaya, radish, tomatoes, and brinjals. We have also conducted workshops in Western India and Southern India, engaging hundreds of students from local schools and colleges. Apart from that, we have also carried out several beach cleanups and tree planting sessions involving the students from these local schools and colleges. Green Hope Foundation works extensively on the conservation of the world's largest mangrove forest, the Sundarbans. The Sundarbans mangrove forest, lying in West Bengal and Bangladesh, is a UNESCO World Heritage and Ramsar site. It is a region of extensive tidal waterways and supports astonishing biodiversity, such as vital populations of Asia's last 2 remaining freshwater dolphin species, both of which are considered endangered, and the only population of tigers living completely in mangroves. On the Indian side of the mangroves, we traveled by boats to these places and planted thousands of mangroves and conducted mangrove cleanups. We also conducted workshops in the local villages and used creative modes of spreading awareness such as music, dance, and art to educate local communities about the threats faced and the actions they can take to conserve their habitat. In Bangladesh, we have successfully organized and conducted multiple cleanups and tree planting sessions involving students from the local villages. We have conducted workshops in the local schools to spread awareness on biodiversity loss and conservation. Moreover, our members also work on biodiversity conservation of both the mangroves and the organisms it supports on the Bangladesh side of the Sundarbans. The mangroves extend over 6,000 kilometers square in Bangladesh and is home to more than 300 types of plants and nearly 700 species of wildlife, including threatened Indian pythons and crocodiles. We planted thousands of mangroves in this region to aid in the restoration of the ecosystem. We also conducted workshops wherein we encouraged students to come up with solutions for their local problems. Educating the youth is imperative if we aim to achieve a sustainable and equitable future for all of us. We need to provide the youth with the platform and resources to create substantial change. We need to transform schools and the education system in order to teach young minds about their responsibilities and promises to the planet. Simple lifestyle changes and actions should be encouraged from an early age so as to produce informed and environmentally conscious citizens of the world. We are ethically and morally bound to bring up the youth as they are the only hope for the future of this planet. We must give the youth a seat at the table and make them a part of the negotiations and dialogues before it is too late. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pragna. Very impressive reach of your organisation, I must say. And you're working across a large part of the world to protect biodiversity. Alieu, would you perhaps like to add your contribution as another representative of Green Hope Foundation of the work you're doing in Liberia?
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. I'm sorry for the break. As from my earlier presentation, I'm Alieu J Busa, Green Hope chapter here, Liberia. On today, as your partner Power Summit, our focus is how young people in learning institutions are contributing in the protection process of our biodiversity. And to also present today's body the amazing work that we continue to do here in Liberia as Green Hope Foundation and other parts of our world. Biodiversity boosts ecosystem productivity where each species, no matter how small, all have an important role to play. For example, a large number of plant species means a great variety of crops. Greater species diversity ensures natural sustainability for all life forms. There are several international conventions on environmental issues over the years. Rules, laws have been made and agreements have been met, but little or no implementations of those rules, laws, and agreements have actually been practicalized. For the implementation of those rules, laws, and agreements, it should be the collective effort and contribution of both young people and learning institutions. We as young people should play an active role in protecting and improving biodiversity, some of which ways that we can do so by making our homes, school, and youth organization more environmentally friendly and adopting environmentally friendly practices such as reusing, reducing, and recycling of different materials, as well as preserving natural resources such as water and maintaining or controlling our usage of electricity. Our work here in Liberia, as you can see in the pictures above, that our involvement with youth organization in educating them how we can use the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals in impacting our work, taking into consideration the very important reason or why we should protect our biodiversity.
Mm-hmm.
We work in solving problems as they arise. We work on mitigating the effects through constructive engagement. Continuous communities along the capital city, Monrovia, of which I am resident of, experience severe sea erosion during the rainy season. We have planted coconut trees along the coastline in Monrovia and provided environmental education to participants on the importance of the tree we planted and to them and our community or ecosystem at large. The issue of degraded land restoration requires urgent action, so is the restoration of mangrove ecosystem. In Liberia, our members here, Green Hope Foundation, planted deep treated a mangrove deforestation for agricultural and human settlement purpose, among others, is rapidly increasing as a result of lack of awareness of the significance of the mangrove ecosystem to the populace. It is the first of its kind in Liberia for our members to be a youth-based organization to actually plant mangrove into degradable mangrove forest. Green Hope Foundation volunteers along with resident along the 72nd belt planted 70 samplings of mangrove trees. The involvement of children in the fight for climate justice should be inevitable. We design activities of interest to children and mold them through the necessity of learning about the environment so they can be triggered to be ambassadors of the environment as early as they can understand the materials. In the pictures are students from rural Liberia, a school in a community called Latia, the town where I came from, and students are displaying community-based solutions to problems faced with their ecosystem. In other form, they presenting their solutions through us. Our members around the world continue to do amazing work every day. Here is our presentation. Here is the members from Indonesia. Our member from Indonesia, Green Hope Foundation Indonesia, have implemented several ground level activities in support of our relentless pursuit of protecting biodiversity. The effort being excited by Green Hope Foundation to work on mitigating the effect of climate change is a holistic effort. Over the years, Green Hope Foundation have worked with children from orphanages and less fortunate ones. As you can see in the pictorial review, there are children, these are children that they are displaying as early as 2 years, at 3 years, they are displaying their solution to protecting our biodiversity through art. Some of our work in Indonesia are mangrove tree planting, environmental economies, children's solution through art, among other amazing things that our members in Indonesia continue to do in effort to protecting biodiversity and all other alarming environmental problems. Tree planting is one of Green Hope Foundation many exciting activities, and we couldn't hold back giving the first picture of 5 left. This is a very young guy. We couldn't hold back in giving him the opportunity to plant his first tree. It was an amazing experience there in Kenya. And these are a lot of tree planting that we continue to do, as the earlier spoke person, Pragna, to elaborate the amount of tree that we have planted around the world. Environment academics for children are prisoners because the urgency that needed to be given to alarming environmental issues is everyone's business, regardless of what parental guidance that they have or their level or their condition of life. Green Hope Foundation goes Your Own Food campaign implemented by children in village where our Green Hope Foundation planted vegetables for their own consumptions, that also giving rise to food security. Our Green Hope members in the Bahamas continue to do amazing ground level work. As you can see in the picture, there's a beach clean out, mangrove planting and conservation, environment academics on mangrove restoration, and the restore the mangrove ecosystem. Our Canada chapter continues to work tirelessly in ensuring that the ground level work is effective in their local communities, and they serve as an example of environmental stewardship to many young people in Canada. Here in the photo is our Green Hope Foundation or President Kakashan Basu, working along with school and youth to actually make them to move in protecting our biodiversity through beach clean out, through the cleanup of the ravines, through the cleanup of parks. And one of the amazing work that we did with learning institution there in Canada is a clean out of the University of Toronto, We also carry out several other tree planting there in Canada farm, and our amazing president Kakashan Basu is increasing the cost for us to grow our own food. Our work in Suriname is very, very amazing, as you might be aware, as relates to biodiversity. Suriname has the world's most forested landscape, with 93% of their land cover forest. We planted mangrove samplings along the South American coastline of the Atlantic Ocean there in Suriname. We educated young people about maintaining their Amazon forest cover. We have conducted workshops for schools and universities students. We have conducted workshops for orphanages and making them to feel part of the global decision making to protecting our world. Total conservation of leather turtle among the extraordinary projects that our amazing members continue to do there in Suriname. As a word and young people, the issue of the collaborative effort in protecting our biodiversity is not one person or effort. It should be a holistic effort, and in doing so, one of the key major stakeholders in doing this are people from the learning institution and young people around the world. Thank you so very much for providing us Green Hope this opportunity to give our insight and provide you the amazing work that we continue to do around the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alieu. Very impressive. We'll go to Cornelia in just a moment. I think this is time very well spent learning how things are happening around the world. We'll go to Cornelia, but I'd like to just set the panelists up for our first discussion point. And just imagine that one of our audience, or some of our audience, are in a school, pupils in a school, that currently is not interacting in a way such as to protect biodiversity. What can that individual do to encourage the school to think about biodiversity and do some practical actions? So that's going to be the first discussion point, if you like. But first, we'll go to Cornelia to explain her organization. Thanks, Cornelia.
Okay, thank you very much, Barry, and thank you so much, Pragna and Alieu, to actually see your work that you're doing around the globe. That's really, really impressive, and I'm really inspired by what you're doing. I think that's great. So I didn't prepare any slides. My apologies. So I'm, on the one hand, I'm the director of BioDISCOVERY. This is one of the Future Earth global research programs. And I think the main role in BioDISCOVERY is actually to organize researchers to understand and how biodiversity changes due to the various global changes we experience, and also what solutions are actually there to protect biodiversity, to see how biodiversity is changing and what actions we actually need to take to prevent biodiversity loss. My other hat that I'm wearing is that I'm working at the University of Zurich within a research priority program on global change and biodiversity. Again, researchers trying to understand what are the factors of biodiversity loss and what are actually the repercussions and feedbacks of that biodiversity loss for ecosystems, but also for human well-being. And as part of that research priority program, we're actually running various outreach programs as well. And one of those, and I'm just going to show a little picture of that, and I hope that I can share my screen. Yes, there we go. I just want to show you quickly that picture. Can you see my screen and the nice photo of exactly, the biodiversity means life tent. This is our outreach program, and it's actually modeled on the British Ecological Society's Six Bucks and Rock and Roll program. So this is the tent that we use to take to various festivals and activities, mostly around the Zurich area, to talk to people about biodiversity, to tell them what type of research we're doing in our research priority program, and to start a general conversation about biodiversity, make them aware of the biodiversity, of the importance of nature around them, and actually help them understand what they can do to protect biodiversity. And an important part of that project actually is not just talking to the people about what we're doing, it's also a science communication training for the PhD students and postdocs within the program. So, and we unfortunately can't see that on the photo there, but each of the PhD students that actually went through that outreach program, they turned their PhD research into a game or an interactive activity to interact with the public and then start the conversation on protection of biodiversity and the importance of biodiversity. So that's our main outreach and activity that we're doing. The other things that I do is that I run or I organize a large conference, the first one we had last year, where I actually encourage, and I was really glad that we actually had youth participants at the big scientific conference, interacting with the scientists, and actually the students that were there, high school students, they presented their own work and own research, and actually the scientists were able to take back so much. They were really impressed with the work of the high school students, and I hope to actually do that again at the next World Biodiversity Forum as well next year. So this is actually all from my side. I actually rather look forward to having the conversation with you and to asking all those exciting questions that we also had at the panel discussion at the Sustainability Research and Innovation Conference a few weeks ago. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Cornelia. I just wanted to check, your conference, is that an annual event?
It's a biannual event. So the last conference was in 2020, and I'm now just preparing for the 2022 conference. So yes.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So perhaps we on to some discussion then. What advice can you experienced panelists give to this poor student in a school where they're not involved in protecting diversity? How can they make their teachers listen, if you like? What practical steps can they take? Who'd like to start?
I'll like to go first.
Go
Okay,
ahead.
so definitely in terms of getting one to be interested in taking upon the time to take action for biodiversity, it has to firstly start with self-education. So the person firstly have to put themselves in a situation where they're going to be more informed, and then they're going to be having a leverage of information. So if the more information they have, definitely they're going to be inspired by other young people like we from the Green Hope Foundation. As they be inspired, definitely they're going to take upon their time to be to take on solving some of the problems that face with our biodiversity. So we for how we get children inspired for us here in Liberia is we get them involved with activities like music, like art, in putting forward their best solutions, and and we make them interested in this by designing a program that is environmentally friendly.
Okay, thank you, Alieu. Pragna, you've got a point to make.
Yes, first of all, I would just like to agree with what Alieu just said. It's very important that the students first educate themselves about the problems that or threats that the planet is facing in order to spread awareness about solutions or provide solutions for the same problems. And also one very important thing would be starting small. So like we mentioned, in our presentation, one of our initiatives that is Grow Your Own Food campaign is a wonderful way for any student to start taking action. That is just growing fruits and vegetables in their backyards or in their balconies. And that way they learn about the biodiversity, they learn about responsible production and consumption, and also inspire others to do the same. And one other way is just upcycling and recycling. The 3 R's, they can follow the 3 R's. These are just small initiatives that can create a huge difference and inspire them to continue to do the work. Thank you.
Yes, so yes, I think these are excellent, great suggestions. I'm coming in from this maybe now from the teacher, educator angle as well as and also as a mother of, like, as I said, 12-year-old now. And the one thing that I actually, I think there's importance in working with the teachers as well. There's science is being taught in school, and I always feel that environmental education is actually lacking in the schools. So if you can actually, as the child, interact with the teacher and say, listen, we're talking about this aspect, and I think it's important that we talk about biodiversity, maybe as extracurricular activities, actually do some activities around biodiversity, conservation, as you say, grow your own vegetables. Also, what they had in Switzerland, there was from the Swiss radio, they actually had an activity called Your Square Meter of Biodiversity, where they actually encourage people to plant wildflowers on their balconies, in their gardens, to encourage insects to actually come in. So that's activities that the pupils actually can do with their teachers together. And then the other thing that stuck my mind, that's already ages ago, when my daughter was still like in pre-primary, they had a teacher that when they were setting up a school garden as well, who put in a sheet of cloth in the garden as well and said, okay, now we can actually use this to observe earthworms and soil organisms, and actually try and incorporate those activities in the school curriculum as well. The other thing that I was involved in was, while I was doing still research, I was working on a nature reserve where we actually started running activities again for school children. We called that an Olympiad. So they would come in to listen to lectures about the ecology and history of the nature reserve, and then we would take them out to do activities. So maybe that you also think about who are actually your partners and allies that you can actually bring in to start those activities. And never forget that you're actually not alone. You've got support to do stuff.
I love the idea of the square meter of biodiversity. The background behind me today is my garden from last week. And it used to be a lawn, because in England we have lawns in our gardens. And I decided to stop mowing. I just mow it once a year now. And it was full of wildflowers and it was full of life. It's fantastic. And you can do it in a square meter, which is great. And I think that'd be a fantastic project, within a school to set that up. Yeah. Now, obviously, how schools interact depends on the teachers. Are there resources you can recommend to teachers, to ideas, resources, places to go, people to meet?
So places to go, people to meet. So UNESCO actually has excellent resources for environmental education and also for teachers. So that's the one thing. Again, sorry, University of Zurich, actually the Department of Geography does a lot of teacher training, and they actually also working together with the researchers, incorporating very current issues into the curriculum as well. So they at the moment throwing up a new curriculum for teachers, thinking about the global challenges, so that the teachers can incorporate that into the daily teaching as well. So there are plenty of resources out there, and I think it's exactly. And then again, working also, I think, with your local organizations, nature conservation organizations. BirdLife always has a lot of excellent resources for teachers available as well. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody from Green Hope Foundation got anything to add to that? Your website, obviously.
Yes, actually, Green Hope Foundation has education toolkits for each and every sustainable development goal, and also on biodiversity conservation, peace and disarmament, etc., for educating teachers specifically. So we provide this education to them, and that way they can teach the students in their respective schools. We also partner with school boards from Canada to Dubai to Suriname to ensure that the teachers and students are aware.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I might add a small commercial for TSL at this point, in that TSL is developing an online learning platform, and there is good information there already. There will be more, so keep looking at their website, and there will be resources available in this particular area. Yeah. I'd like to perhaps talk about how can young people make the world aware of what they're doing in protecting biodiversity. I think it's really important that the whole world understands what they're doing. And have you got any ideas or experience of communication, if you like, from the young people out to the rest of the world to what's happening with biodiversity?
Okay, let me give my insight on that. So we as young people, I think we have the potential that we want to communicate. I think one of the ways that we can communicate is we should be given a platform, or we should create our own platform. For Green Hope Foundation is one of the best example I can tell anybody. Kakashan was only 8 years when she thought of this amazing work. So either we create our own platform, or definitely we look forward to others giving us platform. So one of the best way that we can put for our work there is by creating platform to put for our work.
Okay, yeah. Anybody else want to comment on that? Because we're starting to get quite a few questions from the audience coming in. In fact, they're coming in so fast I can't keep up with them. But perhaps we should start thinking about some of those, if that's okay. The first one came from Kirsty, actually, which I thought was quite clever. In that, Alieu has mentioned that sometimes you're interacting with children aged 2 or 3, even trying to teach them about biodiversity. I'm just wondering whether they've come up with any interesting comments on biodiversity, on how to improve biodiversity, even at that very young age.
I mean, definitely, like, if you critically analyze their responses, you're definitely going to see the bigger picture of what they are trying to say. So we work with children, as I said, from 4, 5, 2. So there was this point where we have this art competition back in my hometown. And then we explained a lot about how to protect our biodiversity, how to do recycling, how to manage our waste properly. And then this, we just told the children to draw solutions. And then there was this amazing art from this young kid, I think around 6 or 5. And then he drew a tree where a guy was cutting down the tree. And then he drew another tree, and then where the guy actually was sitting under the tree. And then I began to wonder, like, wait, what is he trying to say? But then and then where the guy is cutting the tree, he had like a cross kind of thing, like trying to tell people, hey, this is not right. You have to protect this. This brings so much life to us. And then I transformed the solution. Okay, he's actually trying to go against deforestation. That was the best thing I think I could actually analyze from his work. So these are some of the solutions that they brought forward in some of our amazing artwork that we do with them.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and I think that you're never too young to start thinking about biodiversity. In fact, some of the really interesting ideas come from the very youngest people.
Yes, exactly. If I may come in, Barry, I think actually that exactly that age that Alieu was actually talking about, the 4, 5, 6-year-olds, they're really interested in nature. If you let them go out, and they love it. I mean, they don't go when they see an earthworm or a bug, they're fascinating by it. And I think the earlier you get them, and it's like, I mean, I think it's the problem is that we don't allow, at least in the Northern Hemisphere, we don't allow children to experience nature anymore. They're all supervised, they're not allowed to roam around, they're not allowed to touch this, that, and the next thing. And I think that the one important thing is actually that you can only protect what you know. And if you don't know nature, if you don't experience it, I think that's a big problem, because we're removing the kids from nature. And if we get them really in that early and encourage it, go out with them. It's like, I mean, I remember that my parents went out with me. We were catching tadpoles. We were observing stuff. We were always out in nature. And I tried to do what with my daughter as well. Now at 12, she's stuck behind the smartphone, but I hope that I had an influence on that as well. It's like, get them out and let them do that. And I think this example from Alieu, the 5-year-old boy that actually knew it's wrong to cut down trees. You actually need the trees. They protect you. They give you something. I think that's something that the children can actually teach the parents and the grown-ups.
Indeed. And I think older school children actually could very effectively interact with very young school children, and I think that could be very rewarding. And it's like almost them being the teachers, And as I say, if you want to learn about the subject, teach it. And I think that's really important, everybody. Let's run up a question, shall we? Daniel's got a question. What do you think is the most effective way young people can act against the sixth mass extinction and protect biodiversity? Well, that's an easy one for you. Off you go. Anybody got a quick answer to that question?
Can you read the question again?
Yeah, sorry. What do you think is the most effective way young people can act against the sixth mass extinction and protect biodiversity? He stumped you all. Can I perhaps start by maybe one thing that I think young people can do is to start raising awareness. I mean, we've all heard of Greta Thunberg. Many people haven't heard of some of the issues that she's raising until she did. You don't need to mobilize an entire country. Sorry, Alieu. Yes, Alieu.
Yeah. So there are several other things that young people can do. Actually, like you said, awareness. So I think one thing that, because this is what I have learned over the years, I've understand there are a lot of environmental conferences that people go to, and then they have agreement, but there's little of or no absolutely implementation of these conferences. So one thing that young people can do is definitely work, no matter how small the work is, work towards protecting the environment. It can be growing your own food. It can be reducing some of the wasteful usage of water. It can be reducing even just often the how they call it, switching off your electricity or your electronics or devices if you are not using them.
Mhm.
No matter how low or how small the effort is, it's going to make a bigger solution or bigger help to your environment as times go by. So I think the best thing, one of the best thing that young people can do is start with your smaller work that you are able to do.
I would like to add on to what Alieu just said. First of all, I agree with what he said. And one other thing is that to localize the solutions, because we can find solutions for the local problems in their communities. Because the solutions that work in one country may not work in another country. So by identifying the local problems that they face, they can provide local solutions. And in this way, they can help in the protection of biodiversity.
Absolutely, yes. Amelia.
Yeah, actually, you mentioned Greta Thunberg before, and I keep asking myself, is like, because I mean, there's great work that the Green Hope Foundation is doing. There's the Born Global Foundation. There's Global Youth Biodiversity Network. So there's all those activities going on of young people actually protecting biodiversity and doing their thing and working locally. But what we actually missing is actually a face. And I think we need to have more faces to say, standing up this, we're actually doing this, we're protecting biodiversity. And this is important that we do this. And we have the climate, the Fridays for Future, they're all focusing on climate. Greta is now slowly waking up to biodiversity. Is essentially, how can we actually bring up all these activities that we're doing already on the ground in protecting biodiversity and linking up to this more global movement as well? I think everything that's happening, I think needs more visibility. And I think that's something we need to think about and work on.
Yes, I think I agree. And it's interesting that it relates to another question that's just come in from James. And it's about how can youth get a greater voice and role in shaping government laws and actions on the environment. And I think that relates back to your point. So, are you aware of any sort of organization or routes towards government in order to inform them on youth interest in biodiversity activity? Alieu? Oh, sorry, I was going to say something.
So let me give my insight on this question based on my personal experience from Liberia. So
Yeah.
other places are, I think, the issue of awareness and then government involvement or giving the space for young people to voice out their contribution to environmental issues, and how can the government also create a space for that. In other countries, I'm seeing that is increasing. Unfortunately, that is not the case with mostly developing countries. We have a systemic problem when it comes to actually the young people voice being heard, because almost most of our government or our major position in government has been held by elderly people, and then they barely actually see a problem from the standpoint of young people. So what we intend to do here in Liberia is we are increasing our awareness. We are increasing our awareness. We are engaging our local leaders to make them know that definitely there is reason why they should consider us as young people, because tomorrow we are going to be the one to face those problems that they are alarming and emerging today. So one of the things that I think every other person can do in their local community is first start the engagement with your local community and let them see that you actually meant what you are saying. Don't be the direct opposite or the direct copy of them. I mean, they only talk, they have a lot of writing on the book. Implementation is lacking or is very limited. So let them see you doing work. And then if you talk to them, they're gonna see reason why they should consider your inputs and how they can make the system to change to work for you in protecting our work.
Yes, to agree with what Alieu just said, the situation is different in different countries. And here in the UAE, the government is actually very supportive, because we at Green Hope Foundation focus mainly on working with the governments and not against them. We try to educate them as well and not criticize them. We don't generally resort to Western solutions such as striking, but we encourage the local communities and the students of the region to continue the work and take part in actions rather than just criticizing the government. So like you just said, it's different in different countries, and the involvement of businesses and governments is vital if we want to carry forward the movement in climate action.
Thanks, Pragna. Just posted on the chat the Global Youth Biodiversity Network. I don't know if you guys have heard of these people, but Kirsty's put the link there. And it's a place where young people can connect with others and engage with governments in biodiversity protection. So I wasn't aware of those, but have you guys ever interacted with them?
Yes, so I've interacted quite a bit with the Global Youth Biodiversity Network. And actually the one thing about the Global Youth Biodiversity Network, they actually have a seat at the negotiations of the Convention on Biological Diversity. So they're actually really a fairly big player in those global biodiversity negotiations. They do have a voice. They actually make regular interventions as well. So they're connected to the global action, but they also, like the Green Hope Foundation, they have a lot of small local national chapters, and they do a lot of local activities as well. It's mostly raising awareness, running art competitions, for example. So they're an excellent network to connect with. Yes.
Splendid. Well, I recommend people go and have a look at the website, which is available on the chat, and we should do that. Okay, we're sort of coming to an end of our discussion. We've got about 10 minutes left. Is there anything you panelists would particularly like to cover? Direction you'd like to take the conversation?
Actually, I would just like to answer one of the audience questions. Someone asked, do you have vertical gardening in the UAE? And the answer is yes, we do. And we work in collaboration with the farms in the region. And some of the buildings here in the UAE also have vertical gardening. And this is all part of UAE's sustainability plan. So that is the answer to that question. Yeah.
Starting to take off in the UK as well. I had a fascinating tour at the University of Warwick recently in the centre of England, and they're experimenting with using vertical gardening to grow salad crops, and they can do that all year round using natural light, minimal heating. Extraordinary technology, extraordinary.
I also like to pick up on some of the questions we still have sitting in the chat, and there's actually two that I'm looking at the moment. So the one is that actually Daniel, and thanks for that, he's actually asking how young people get involved in similar projects and programs that promote sustainability and environmental protection. And I think we've seen the examples from the Game Hope Foundation. There's also the Global Youth Biodiversity Network, and I think for you, the starting point would actually be to reach out to those programs, find out whether they actually have activities already going on in your country. And if not, then go and find some friends and like-minded people and start your own chapter, essentially. So I think this is, at the moment, I mean, that's where we are. We need to start from the bottom up, and we need to get involved and start doing things. And to answer a different question is like, no, I don't think there's enough support from the rest of society, governance and businesses to youth and schools to actually help them protect biodiversity. There actually needs to be much, much more support. But I'm handing over to Pragna and Alieu because I think they've got lots more to say on this.
So in terms of kicking off projects with Green Hope, can people in individual schools, individual countries come to you and say, look, there's an opportunity for increasing biodiversity here. Can you help?
Yes, definitely. One of the ways that we engage with students from across the world is through our website. So if an individual wants to join our organization, they can go through our website, and even schools can open their own Green Hope chapters to mobilize the students in the respective schools.
So let me just add to what Pragna said. In our first summit on United Nations Sustainable Development Goals here in Liberia, after that summit, we have 3 of our participants who actually directly communicated to me that they want to fund a school-based club that will actually meet once a week to talk about some of the environmental problems that our country, Liberia, is faced with. And that was encouraged. I mean, I was amazed that, I mean, we are yielding such a result from our summit, and definitely he is doing well. After all, he actually has his own organization, so my involvement with him is not really direct, but he communicated to me once a while and then gave me their development.
Fantastic. We're coming towards the end. I think we've got time for one more question, because at the very end of our discussion, I'm going to ask each of our panelists to give us a takeaway message about youngsters, young people, and biodiversity and how to protect it. So I'm going to try and limit you to one sentence each, which is impossible, and you won't. But think about that. Well, we just discussed the final question, really. And this is a nice one. So it's from Jasmine. What are your favourite campaigns by youth and schools that you've seen in recent years?
I would like to answer the question. Yeah,
sorry?
I would like to answer that question. One of my favorite campaigns that I had the honor and privilege to be a part of was the trip to the Sundarbans in West Bengal. We traveled there and it was like a 4-day event where we got to engage with the local communities. And as I mentioned in my presentation, it was just wonderful to see the students from those villages just engage with us and be so interactive, and it was just heartwarming to see that, you know, they are also capable of doing such a positive change from their local communities. So that would be one of my favorite campaigns.
Did you see a tiger?
Unfortunately, no. We did go to see tigers, but at that point of time, there weren't any sightings. So yeah.
Mine, great place. Alieu.
So my favorite would actually be the artwork that we had, and then with that amazing solution made from that very young guy. So this is why I consider it to be the very amazing one, because they are, I mean, far away from Monrovia. They barely actually get education about our environment or about diversity. And then our first interaction with them, like for 2 days, and then he was very so intelligent to capture the whole thing, the whole message, and then what we meant, and then he bringing forth the solution. I was amazed, and then the interaction with children is always very enlightening. So it was amazing that to see a very young, very young boy bringing forth such best solution, because one of the problem in that rural part of Liberia is deforestation for agricultural purposes or for human resettlement. So bringing forth such solution, it was very amazing.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely fascinating. You can engage with such young children, and they seem to get it. They understand and they can contribute, which I think is really important. Which is important here. Yeah. Cornelia, do you have a particular favourite?
So I'm going to go back to the Global Youth Biodiversity Network, and they actually produced a booklet on the IG biodiversity targets. So that's the 10 biodiversity targets that we set by the Convention on Biological Diversity. And essentially translating this into something that everybody can understand and actually use that as a means, again, to educate people. So I think this is another important thing of youth as well, that you can actually be an educator and a multiplier as well. So that was one of my favorite campaigns.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, it's an excellent experience there. So I think we've lost Alieu. I think his connection may have dropped off. So let's see if he comes back in a second. But really, it's 2 minutes to go now. So perhaps I could have your takeaway messages for our audience, please. Who wants to go first? Pragna, are you ready?
Yeah, sure. So just to conclude whatever we just discussed, I would just like to say that it is time that we stop neglecting the voices of the youth, because we must give them the opportunity to be a part of the negotiations and policy making, because in few years they will have the power to dictate our planet's future. And this will also entail giving the highest priority to our educational institutions by introducing pertinent educational reforms that teach the youth about practical knowledge, and not only with regard to the priority actions for sustainable development, but also in skills for negotiations, for developing genuine regional and global partnerships.
Thank you, Pragna. Cornelia, your message, your takeaway message.
So my takeaway message is actually, it mirrors what Pragna has actually been doing. It's like we actually need to take a step back and actually give the youth the platform and actually give them the opportunity to be part of the decision making, to be part of the solution. I mean, as Pragna said, they're dealing with the problems that mankind is creating now. So they actually should be the ones that are involved in the decision making and should be having the platform to actually be part of this. And I'd actually would like to invite you to join the World Biodiversity Forum. I'll actually contact you afterwards as well. Maybe we can work out something that can actually showcase the work that you're doing and run maybe workshops or something like that. That would be really excellent if you could do that. Thank you.
Alieu, your takeaway message for everyone.
Well, thank you so very much for the invitation. And as we might be aware, the young people make about 1.8 billion of our population, and therefore the young people play a significant role in the implementation, monitoring, and review of the process towards protecting our biodiversity, as well as holding government accountable, because they have the potential and energy to do so. With a political commitment and adequate resources, young people have the potential to make the most effective transformation of the world into the better place for all of us. Therefore, young people involvement with protecting biodiversity and learning institutions should be one of the most considerable factors that every other organization, government, or group of people who are very serious about protecting our biodiversity. Thank you again for giving me this opportunity to present our work.
Thank you, Alieu. Well, huge thanks to all of our panelists. That was a really stimulating discussion. I think this uncovered many options for individuals to become involved in protecting biodiversity, which is great. The links are all in the chat, so people can go away and do that. I think probably we'll even stay online for a little bit longer, Eva. Is that right? Just discussing some of these points on Facebook Live?
Yes, please.
Yes, okay. So, but we will bring this discussion to a formal close. And so thanks very much indeed to the audience for their questions and to the expert panelists for their advice and experience. Fantastic. Thank you very much, everybody. So we can stay on for a little bit. I think probably